Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's video. It's Mark here from Digital Groove Online, and this week we're going to talk about compression for beginners, really at a basic level, so that brand new producers can sort of understand what compression is and when you will probably want to use it in your tracks. It can be very daunting at the start, and I suppose some of the biggest misconceptions with compression is that whenever beginners listen to their tracks against maybe professionally produced tracks, they think that it's all down to compression that makes it sound fat. And whilst compression can make your track sound bigger, fuller, and fatter, it's when used subtly across individual channels, maybe on group channels, and finally on your master channel. It can make a big difference to your track, but it's not always necessary to use it. So I was thinking, how could I show beginners within the production space how to use compression and how to think about what types of sounds you might apply it to. And in this video, we're going to look at vocals. It's probably the best way I can describe the best use for compression. What is compression? It is basically a volume control, a gain control that reacts to the input signal and levels it out over time. So what it really does is can make the quieter parts louder and the louder parts quieter, and it brings those sounds closer together in volume, but you just don't want to overdo it so it's just a wall of sound, because it can take out a lot of the dynamics within the track, which is the difference between the loudest peak and the lowest peak within that audio sample. So the best way I could think about it was, let's get some vocals into a project and sort of talk you through what I'm trying to say. When a vocalist is singing into a mic, or even someone is talking into a mic, their voices at different levels every time they say something or sing something. So if you look at the wave file down below here, you can see within the first sort of phrase here, it's quite bulky, it's quite loud, and this one's a little bit quieter. These ones are sort of a similar volume. It gets a little bit louder here, and this bit's a little bit quieter, and then this bit is a lot louder than the rest of them. Now I will play it through, and what it is like a sort of little verse intro into a bit of a chorus, and whilst it sounds really good on its own, what you'll find is if you just drop that into a mix, the quieter parts, or the intro part before the actual chorus, can then become a little bit more buried in the background of the overall track. So applying that compression and bringing it in and around similar levels can then make that vocal sit a little bit further forward in the mix. So we're going to look at the compressor settings. We'll talk you through what the basic settings do and how to use them, and we're going to apply it to this vocal, and you can see we'll re-record that vocal back in, and you can see that hopefully by the end of it that it's a little bit more consistent and will sound a little bit better at the end of the mix. So let's have a listen from start to finish with regards to the actual vocal itself.
I've been looking out for somebody just like you, but then you walk on by, and I knew what I had to do. The way you're moving, the way you shine, everybody's watching you. I wanna make you mine. The way you're looking, the way you smile, it's like you put a spell on me. You're always on my mind, on my mind.
So it sounds okay. It sounds like the energy comes whenever the chorus comes in later on, which is correct. The intro part is a little bit quieter and softly sung, but we're going to apply a compressor just to bring the first part of the actual sample up a little bit louder to match this later on. It won't have the same energy, it's sung differently, but the level and volume will come up to make it a little bit more consistent. So we're going to apply a stock compressor from Ableton. And we're just going to bring that up at the bottom. And we'll talk through some of the most important buttons here, and we'll go through what that does. And if you're after this video, what you can do is hit the I button in the very bottom corner here, and that's an information button, and it allows you to hover over these buttons, and it actually explains what they do as well. So that's really handy. Anything you hover over inside Ableton, it will let you know what it is. So let's turn that off for now. Okay, so the threshold is probably the most important part, because it is the actual trigger and tells the compressor when to react to the signal that's coming into it. So what we do is we pull the threshold down. You can see it says minus 9.93 there. So basically anything that passes above 11 decibels that it says now, the compressor is going to react to the signal above 11 decibels. Okay, so that's what that is. We're pulling this down. In fact, I'm going to change the view. You've got 3 different views along the bottom here, and this one's probably a more visual representation as to what's going on. So if you select this one along the bottom, and I'm actually going to just leave it as it is, and we'll play that and we'll see the waveform going along the bottom.
I've been looking now for somebody just like you.
So realistically, this is where the audio file is. So for the compressor to even react, it needs to be down around here to start touching the top of that vocal. Now we don't really want to go down too far because we'll squash it too much when the louder parts comes in. But we'll play it in real time and we'll start dialing things in. The ratio is how hard the compression works. So every 4 decibels, it's a 4:1 ratio at the minute. For every 4 decibels that it goes above the threshold, it will squash it down to 1 decibel above the threshold. And you've got all these different settings in here. And the harder we hit it, you know, we go up to infinite here, it's turning it into a limiter. So it's just taking anything above that 0 and squashing it right down completely. But we'll leave it on 4:1, which means any 4 decibels that it goes over that threshold, it will just squash it down. It's not hard, it's not soft, it's somewhere in between. Okay, so the attack then after that is whenever it passes the threshold itself, so it goes past that 6 decibels, you know, the attack will say, how long do we wait before we actually start the compression after it passes the threshold? And there's different uses for that. Whenever you have kick drums, you don't want to squash the transient, which is the initial click of the kick drum, completely. You want to sort of leave that intact, so you tell it to wait a little second before it compresses anything else down. I don't want to overcomplicate it too much because again, it's for beginners. And the release is how quickly that goes back to its normal state again. So we have the ratio, the attack, the release, and the threshold is this line here that we're going to pull down. And the last thing that I will probably talk about now, because it's a complete beginner's explanation of this, is the output here. So whenever you start compressing, it's going to reduce the loudest part down, and it's obviously going to bring the quietest parts up as well. So you start to get what's called gain reduction. And we start to get a visual representation down here of how much gain reduction is happening. And then because it's pushing the gain reduction down, we then push the output back up to compensate for what it's reducing by. And that will bring the loudness back up in and around where it is. So we're going to leave the ratio on 4:1. And we're going to get the compressor to react pretty quickly because it's not a kick drum. And the release as well, we're going to get it to react, you know, quite quickly as well, back up out of the way. So we'll play it now and we'll start pulling the threshold down, and you will see the gain reduction happening in the waveform.
I've been looking now for somebody.
You can see that it's stuck in it loads.
But then you walk on by.
So let's see when the chorus comes in. So it's not actually doing any compression yet.
The way you're moving, the way you shine, everybody's watching you. I wanna make you mine. The way you're looking.
And you can see at the bottom right here, it's being reduced by this amount, for 2, 3, 4 decibels, depending on what it's actually saying. So there's no real gain reduction happening at the minute.
But then you walk on by. And I knew what
so it's just compressing it subtly there, and it's compressing it a little bit harder because of the loudness there. So between 4 decibels there, it's reducing it by. It's like you put a spell on me. You're always on my mind, on my mind. So what we're going to do now is, because it's being reduced by about 4 or 5 decibels, we'll put this up again on the output by about 4 decibels as well.
I've been looking out for somebody just like you.
Okay, so the settings are sort of dialed in now, where we're not compressing the lowest parts too much, but whenever the louder parts come in, it's bringing it closer down in level with the quieter parts. And then the output, we're pushing that back up again, just to get that level back up in and around where it was. So what I'll do now is I'll re-record this back into the channel below. and we're going to take the channel 5, which I've already set up below, but it will be more or less like this if you're going to follow along. And we take the input here of the audio channel, and we're going to take the input from channel 5. So let's do that now. So that's sending the audio into this channel here, and we're going to make sure that it's record armed, and we're going to go back to the very start and push record, and that will record the audio in below.
I've been looking out for somebody just like you, but then you walk on by, and I knew what I had to do. The way you're moving, the way you shine, everybody's watching you. I wanna make you mine. The way you're looking, the way you smile, it's like you put a spell on me. You're always on my mind, on my mind.
Okay, so now the waveform does look smaller than the one below, and I'll explain why that's happening. I've turned this down by minus 15.9 decibels, so it's going to record it in a little bit lower. The actual audio file itself, which I've got from Splice, is a lot louder, but I've turned it down so the recording's coming in a little bit lower. So we'll try and boost that up in and around what the other one looks like, just so we can do a comparison of where the compressor made changes. So if I click here and just look at the one above, and we just start bringing the gain up. As you can see, nearly 16 decibels. I've at the top right hand corner here, I had reduced it by, so we'll do the same here, nearly 16. We'll go to 15.9 just to be this. Oh, can't type. We'll do 15.9 and hit enter, and hopefully that's in and around what the other one looked like. So if you have a look at it now, you can see that even this part here looks louder. It looks more consistent to the actual chorus below, where this part of the vocal here is quieter, this part of the vocal is quieter. These are too. There's still differences, there's still dynamics within the actual vocal, but what it's done with that compression being applied subtly is that it's brought some of the lower vocals up higher and made it a lot more consistent across the actual full audio file. So if I zoom in, you can see that it has brought the volume of those up consistently. Okay, and I'll go back in here and take compressor off now, and we'll just flick between the two of them as they go across. So this is before.
I've been looking out for somebody just like you,
And after.
but then you walk on by, and I knew what I had to do. The way you're moving,
Before.
the way you shine,
After.
everybody's watching you. I wanna make you mine.
And hopefully if you've got a good set of headphones on or a good set of speakers, you can hear the difference there. But this is now closer in volume to the chorus. And when you start adding more things into your mix, this will sound a lot more clearer in the mix than this. You would hear some of those quieter parts sort of fall into the background. So hopefully, that's made a little bit more sense. It's not the most in-depth, but I'm trying to break it down, very user-friendly, I suppose, in its basic form, that we're automating the gain control basically the whole way across that audio file, rather than having to draw it in by hand and tell it to get louder in this part and quieter in this part as well. And we've recorded that back into the track to show you what the compressor setting had done. We're pulling the threshold down to get gain reduction. We're getting the compressor to react, fast enough by using the attack and release, and then we're pushing the gain, whatever it's been gain reduced by, on the output back up again. Now you don't have to record it in. I've just recorded it back in for visual purposes, but you'll be able to tell by your ears that the thing sounds a lot more consistent now. And hopefully that's beneficial to you and you can apply it to your productions. There's lots of other reasons we would use compression, but I thought vocals was a good way to start and let you see that we can do that and make the vocal a lot more consistent. So yeah, before we finish off, I'll let you hear what I was just messing about with. Just a little bit of a pop sound, I suppose. So minus 14. Yeah, okay. So we'll finish off with this.
I've been looking out for somebody just like you, but then you walk on by, and I knew what I had to do. The way you're moving, the way you shine, everybody's watching you. I wanna make you mine. The way you're looking, the way you smile, it's like you put a spell on me. You're always on my mind, on my mind.
Okay, so there we go. If you're brand new to the channel, please hit subscribe and follow, and don't be afraid to comment below. And if you like music production and you would like some one-on-one lessons, you can hit me up at digitalgrooveonline.com. I produce a range of music, deep house, techno, house, pop, you name it, so I can more or less apply myself to most genres. And if you're struggling on YouTube just putting things into a certain order and are a little bit unsure as to where to start and build yourself up to a good level, don't be afraid to drop me a message and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. So until next week, I hope you've enjoyed that video. See you then.